Her words hit harder than any slammed door. I don't cook for you. I only cook for my kids. You're a grown man. Figure it out. Silence fell across the table. Even her teenage son stopped mid-chew, pretending not to hear. I didn't snap back. I didn't beg for a seat at my own dinner. I just set the empty plate back into the cabinet, slow and deliberate. Because in that moment, the marriage ended for me. She thought it was about chicken and mashed potatoes. She didn't realize it was the blueprint of our life, cracked straight down the middle. This isn't just drama. This is what happens when loyalty turns into entitlement. Subscribe if you want more stories told raw, unfiltered, exactly as they unfolded. I'm Mark, 41. I run my own architecture firm where every line, every foundation matters. Funny how I could spot a hairline fracture in concrete, but miss the fracture at my own table until that night. When I met Sarah 6 years ago, she was a single mom juggling 2 kids, a small apartment, and a job that barely covered rent. I had the stability she said she'd always dreamed of, my own house, a steady career, a plan for the future. She called me her anchor. Her kids, Jake and Emily, were polite and shy the first time we met, and I told myself I could be the steady presence they needed. The first months were warm in a way that felt new. Family dinners with laughter, movie nights on the couch, even the little notes she used to leave in my briefcase. I thought I'd built something real. When she moved in, it was supposed to be a partnership. I covered the mortgage, the utilities, the groceries. She promised to handle the day-to-day, meals, school runs, the little things that make a house feel alive. It sounded fair, balanced. But over time, balance turned into expectation. The mortgage became invisible, the bills forgotten. The dinners less about us and more about her kids. And me? I was still paying, still providing, still convincing myself that love meant sacrifice. Looking back, the signs were there. Moments where I felt less like a husband and more like a sponsor. But I ignored them. Because I wanted the family picture to stay intact. Until one night at the table when she finally said the quiet part out loud. The shift didn't happen overnight. It was gradual, like watching paint peel, quiet, almost invisible until suddenly the wall looks ruined. At first, it was little things. Sarah stopped setting a plate for me at the table. Grab one if you're hungry, she'd say, already dishing food for Jake and Emily, or the weekends when I suggested a family outing. She'd answer, the kids don't want to do that. You can go if you like, as if my presence in their plans was optional. I brushed it off. I told myself step-families are complicated, that bonds take time. But 5 years in, I wasn't blending into anything. I was orbiting around a unit that didn't see me as part of itself. The bills kept coming, and I kept paying. Mortgage, insurance, school fees. I told myself love is about contribution, about carrying the weight so others can breathe easier. But somewhere along the way, contribution turned into erasure. The house I bought became her house. Her friend said it too. This place is perfect, Sarah. You're so lucky. Not once did she correct them. She just smiled, like she'd built the foundation herself. It's funny, my job is all about spotting cracks before they become structural failures. In my own home, I saw them, felt them, and ignored them. Until that night at the dinner table when her words slammed down like a gavel. I don't cook for you. I only cook for my kids. The crack wasn't a crack anymore, it was collapse in progress. After that dinner, I stopped expecting to be part of their circle. Instead, I quietly stepped back and started treating the situation for what it was, a transaction. The first thing I cut was the grocery transfer. Every Friday, I used to push a chunk of my paycheck into Sarah's account, no questions asked. It covered food, school lunches, random shopping sprees. That week, I didn't. By Monday, she noticed. The grocery card got declined, she said, annoyance curling her voice. I kept typing on my laptop. Then use the joint account, I replied. She blinked, confused. That account has barely anything in it. Exactly. I buy my own food now? You said I should figure it out, remember? She stood there, mouth opening and closing, like she was searching for the right insult. Finally, she muttered something about me being petty and stormed off. But I wasn't being petty. I was being precise. From then on, I stopped funding her lifestyle. I still paid the mortgage and the utilities, my house, my name, my credit on the line. But the extras, the endless stream of money that let her buy new clothes for herself while calling me stingy if I wanted a new tool for my workshop, that faucet was turned off. I bought a small grill and started cooking on the patio. Steaks, burgers, even a few late-night experiments with cedar planks and salmon. I'd eat outside, book in hand, listening to the quiet. Sometimes Jake or Emily would wander out, awkward, curious. I'd offer them a plate. They never refused. Meanwhile, Sarah fumed. She tried to spin it as cruelty, telling me I was punishing her for one bad night. But I wasn't punishing anyone. I was adapting to the rules she had laid out. "You're not part of my kid's world," she'd said in so many words. Fine. Then I wasn't going to bankroll it. She thought I'd cave, that eventually I'd miss the illusion of family enough to put the money back. But instead, I was meeting with a lawyer, collecting bank statements, reviewing the prenup we'd signed. The silence between us grew heavier with every passing day. And in that silence, I found something surprising. Peace. By the second week, the tension in the house was like static before a storm. Sarah stomped around, slamming cabinet doors, muttering to her sister on the phone about how cold I'd become. But she still expected me to fund everything as if nothing had changed. That's when I called Frank. He's not just a lawyer, he's the kind of man who wears calm like armor. Sharp, deliberate, no wasted words. I sat in his office with a folder of documents, bank statements, the prenup, the deed to the house, even receipts for the car Sarah drove. I told him about the dinner, about the sentence that had carved the last thread of connection. "I don't cook for you. I only cook for my kids." He listened without interrupting, then leaned back, a grim smile tugging at his mouth. "That," he said, "is one of the clearest marital breakdowns I've ever heard. You're not a partner in her eyes. You're an ATM with a pulse, and the prenup protects you." We laid out the battlefield. The house? Mine, purchased years before the marriage, secured by the prenup. The investments? Also mine, untouchable. Her only angle would be alimony, and Frank already had a number in mind that was fair but far from generous. "Move quickly," he advised. "Don't give her time to stage a narrative. File while you control the facts." That night, while Sarah scrolled TikTok on the couch, I sat at my desk drafting a timeline. Not of our marriage, but of its end. Every late grocery payment, every ignored contribution, every time she reminded me subtly or bluntly that I was outside her circle. The paper looked clinical, almost like one of my project plans at work. And maybe that's what it was. A demolition plan. Frank filed the papers 3 days later. I arranged for the process server to deliver them on a Friday afternoon while I was on the patio grilling a steak. I wanted the smell of real food, sizzling and mine alone to mark the moment. When the knock came, I didn't move. I heard Sarah open the door, her laugh dying as the envelope touched her hands. By the time she stormed out to the patio waving the papers in fury, I'd already flipped the steak. "What the hell is this, Mark?" she demanded, voice shaking. "It's a petition for divorce," I said, calm as the smoke rising from the grill. Her eyes were wild, her face red. "You're ending our marriage over dinner? Are you serious?" I finally looked at her. "No, Sarah. I'm ending it because dinner showed me the truth. I was never your husband. I was your banker. And I'm done being the funding you don't respect." The spatula clicked against the grill, and in that moment, the balance of power shifted. The papers hit her like ice water, but Sarah didn't stay silent long. By Saturday morning, her mother was on the phone. "Mark, I have just heard the most ridiculous thing," Brenda snapped, voice sharp with outrage. "You're divorcing my daughter because she didn't serve you a plate of chicken? Have you lost your mind?" I kept my tone steady. "Brenda, with all due respect, this isn't about chicken. It's about being told in my own house that I am not considered part of the family I provide for." That was just the moment the mask slipped. She tried guilt next. "She has 2 children to raise. Sometimes a man needs to be a grown-up and make his own sandwich." "I agree," I said. "That's why I'm being a grown-up and handling my affairs permanently." From here on, your daughter's lawyer can speak to mine. Click. End of call. By Monday, Sarah shifted tactics. She cornered me in the kitchen, voice dripping with faux concern. Mark, we need to think about the children. This is going to uproot them. New school, new friends. Is that really fair to them, all because of your pride? I looked her in the eye. I've thought about the children. That's why I'll ensure they're not left destitute. But this house is my premarital asset. It's not their inheritance. Where they live next will depend on your ability to provide. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. Her face tightened at the mention of the prenup. I don't think she ever took it seriously. To her, it was just a piece of paper I'd insisted on when we married, a nuisance she assumed wouldn't matter. Now it was iron bars closing in. By midweek, she had hired her own lawyer. A letter arrived demanding exclusive use of the house, spousal support that bordered on fantasy, and, most absurdly, child support for Jake and Emily. Her lawyer argued that since I had acted as a father figure for 5 years, I had an implied duty of care. Frank nearly laughed when he read it. It's a classic overreach, he said. They're fishing. The judge will swat it down. Meanwhile, Sarah tried another performance. I came home Thursday to find the table set for 4, a pan of lasagna steaming in the center. She met me at the door with a smile I hadn't seen in years. I made dinner. For all of us, I glanced at the table, then back at her. Thank you, I said politely, but I already have plans. I walked past her, grabbed my keys, and left for a burger at the pub. Behind me, the silence was deafening. She didn't miss me. She missed my wallet, the security, the easy life, and I wasn't buying it anymore. 2 weeks after the papers were served, Sarah escalated. Frank called me into his office, holding a thick folder. She's filed for an emergency hearing, he said. She's claiming emotional abuse and requesting a restraining order to have you removed from your own house. The blood drained from my face. She's trying to kick me out, he nodded. It's a desperate move. Don't panic. We'll handle it. Court was set for Friday morning. Sarah arrived in a dark suit, tissues clutched dramatically in her hand. When the judge asked her to speak, she launched into a tearful monologue. He gives me the silent treatment. He withholds money to control me. I feel unsafe in my own home. I sat there, jaw tight, listening as she painted me as a monster. Frank simply waited. When it was his turn, he stood calmly. Mrs. Miller, could you please recount the conversation you had with your husband on July 16th regarding dinner? Sarah stiffened. It was nothing. Just a silly argument over food. The judge leaned forward. Answer the question. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I told him I didn't cook for him. Only for my kids. That he could figure it out. Frank let the silence stretch. So, in your own words, you excluded the man who pays for your mortgage, utilities, and groceries from a meal in his own home. And now, you claim his decision to adapt financially is abuse? The judge looked unimpressed. This motion is dismissed. It is a transparent attempt to manipulate the court. Mrs. Miller, consider this a warning. File another frivolous claim and sanctions will follow. Sarah's lawyer paled. Sarah burst into tears, loud enough to echo through the courtroom. Frank leaned toward me, voice low. She just fired her biggest shot and it backfired. Now we press forward outside. Sarah rounded on me. You made me look like a fool in there. I met her gaze, calm as ever. No, Sarah. You did that all by yourself, she stormed off, heels clacking against the marble floor. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. After her courtroom stunt collapsed, Sarah didn't retreat. She pivoted. The war shifted from legal papers to little knives in the dark. The first sign was the credit card bill. A joint account we'd barely touched in years suddenly lit up with charges. A spa day, a $1,000 handbag, steak dinners at upscale restaurants. She was running up marital debt, betting I'd be forced to shoulder half of it in the divorce. Frank didn't even flinch. We froze the card, filed a motion assigning all debt incurred post-separation solely to her. Another loophole closed. Next, she tried the children. I overheard her in the hallway, voice hushed but urgent. Jake, your stepdad doesn't care about us. He's trying to kick us out. We'll have nothing. That night, Jake knocked on my office door. It was awkward. He hadn't spoken to me much since the papers were filed. "Hey, Mark," he said, shifting from foot to foot. I closed my laptop. "What's up?" "Mom said you're making us leave." "That you don't care," I kept my voice level. "Your mom and I are getting a divorce." "This house was mine before we married. So yes, eventually she'll need to move, but I'll make sure you and Emily aren't abandoned. You'll have a roof. You'll be okay." He hesitated, then blurted, "That night, when she said dinner wasn't for you, we heard it. It was messed up." That single sentence hit harder than any legal win. The kids had seen. They knew. But Sarah wasn't done. 2 weeks later, Frank called me with a new bombshell. "She's filed for another hearing, this time accusing you of financial abuse, claiming you cut off support as a weapon." I actually laughed, sharp and bitter. "She told me to figure it out." "That's all I did." "Exactly," Frank said, "and we'll remind the judge of that. Every time she tries to weaponize your calm, it just underscores her chaos." Meanwhile, Sarah doubled down at home. She set the thermostat to extremes, forgot to pay minor bills, blasted music at midnight as if to reclaim control of a house that legally wasn't hers. It was petty, frantic energy, like someone flailing in quicksand. I, on the other hand, grilled steaks on the patio, shared meals with Jake and Emily when they wandered out, and kept a file cabinet filling with evidence. Sarah thought she was wearing me down. She didn't realize she was only proving my case for me. The summons landed on a Thursday afternoon. Emergency hearing. Sarah was petitioning for a restraining order. Her claim? That my calm detachment, my decision to handle my own meals and stop funneling money into her account, amounted to emotional cruelty and financial abuse. She wanted me removed from my own home. For a moment, my stomach twisted. This wasn't petty credit card debt anymore. This was her trying to weaponize the court system to erase me from my house. Frank didn't blink. "It's theater," he said, sliding the motion across his desk. "Judges hate being used as pawns. Just stick to facts." The courtroom was packed with the low hum of tension. Sarah sat with her lawyer, eyes red from rehearsed tears. When called, she launched into her monologue. "He isolates me. He withholds money. I feel unsafe." Her voice cracked perfectly on cue, like she'd practiced in front of a mirror. The judge leaned back unimpressed. When Frank rose, he didn't argue. He dismantled. "Mrs. Miller," he began, voice calm. "On July 16th, in front of your children, did you tell your husband, quote, 'I don't cook for you. I only cook for my kids. You're a grown man. Figure it out?'" She shifted, defensive. "It was a stupid argument." "Answer the question," the judge cut in. Her voice dropped to a mumble. "Yes." Frank let it hang, then stepped forward. "You told the man who pays the mortgage, utilities, car, groceries, that he was excluded from the very family unit he funds. He then did exactly what you instructed. He figured it out. And now you label that abuse?" The silence was thick. The judge's expression hardened. "Motion denied," he said flatly. "And consider this a warning, Mrs. Miller. Abuse of process will not be tolerated." Sarah's lawyer tried to recover, but the damage was irreversible. She had overplayed her hand and been exposed under oath. Walking out of that courthouse, the air felt different, lighter. Frank tucked the file under his arm. "She just handed us victory," he said. "From here on, it's not about if you win, it's about how much she loses." For the first time since the night of the chicken, I felt the ground tilt in my favor. Sarah hadn't just lost emotion. She'd lost credibility. And in divorce court, that's everything. 6 months later, the papers were signed. No fireworks, no last-minute pleas. Just a judge's stamp, the scrape of a pen, and a marriage officially dissolved. Sarah walked out of court flanked by her lawyer, face drawn and pale. Gone was the righteous fury, the smug certainty. What remained was exhaustion and defeat. The settlement mirrored Frank's first offer. The house remained mine, protected by the prenup. My investments untouched. 12 months of rehabilitative alimony, enough for her to land on her feet, nothing more. Her bid for lifetime support, for child support for kids who weren't mine, for exclusive use of the house, all denied. She moved into a modest two-bedroom apartment across town. No granite counters, no manicured backyard, just beige carpet and thin walls. For the first time in years, she worked full-time, receptionist at a dental office. Word filtered back through acquaintances. She hated every second, complained daily, and blamed me for her new reality. The kids adjusted faster. Jake, 16, reached out one evening. We talked about colleges, scholarships, and how to build a future without shortcuts. Before hanging up, he said quietly, "You didn't ruin Mom's life." She did. I get it now. That meant more than any court order. As for me, life feels mine again. I refinished the hardwood floors, replaced her heavy curtains with open blinds, let light back into rooms that had felt suffocating. Friends returned. Projects long on hold took shape. Peace became the soundtrack of the house. The revenge wasn't a grand explosion, it was quiet, precise. It was letting her own words, "You're a grown man. Figure it out," become prophecy. I figured out that I wasn't her husband, just her provider. I figured out how to end it cleanly, legally, without drama, and Sarah? Now she's the one forced to figure it out. How to pay rent, budget, and live without the safety net she mocked. She once cried, "You're ending this over dinner?" Number. I ended it over the truth that dinner revealed. It was never about chicken, it was about respect. And once respect died, the marriage was already over. The silence she left behind isn't empty, it's freedom.